Last segment of hour number one. Tisha Casida here, along with Michael Badnarik. And we're dissecting Tisha's platform for her run against Representative Scott Tipton of the 3rd Congressional District of Colorado. And so far, I can't find much flaw with what she's saying. And I got one more thing that I really want to hit on. And then next hour, if you want to stick around, Tisha, I'll have another host. Popeye's going to be joining the conversation, everybody. And we'll get into more of the nitty-gritty on current events and Bill of Rights, constitutionality, all sorts of stuff. It's going to be a free-for-all, hour number two. And that is raw foods. This is the subject that kind of chaps me a little bit. Raw foods. There was a case back in May where an Amish farmer was actually harassed by the FDA, and I think a suit was brought against him for selling raw milk and transporting it. I guess people would go and buy it, and then they would drive it over the border, and because of that, it gave the feds jurisdiction because it was considered interstate commerce. What's your stance on raw food or food freedom?
Well, people should be able to consume whatever they want as long as they're not harming anyone else. And that includes something like raw milk. And, it's ludicrous to me that we have this going on, which takes copious amounts of money to try and regulate when 100 years ago, not even 100 years ago, my grandmother on her farm drank raw milk. It's not something that's unknown to the human digestive system. It's been around for arguably thousands of years. And I think it's just insane that we're having this conversation, that it's even being regulated. And the use of force that's being used against these farmers is completely uncalled for and downright dangerous, because people should be able to consume what they like. And I'm a shareholder of raw milk. I've drank it for several years, and I know there's health benefits to it. And I believe that, and I think that boosting one's immune system is incredibly important when you're facing a lot of the scary diseases and other things coming down the pipe. So anything you can do to do preventative wellness is important, because, as you know, our healthcare, sick care is completely broken, our sick care system. So I think that it's just insane what they're doing. And I encourage people to learn about raw milk and other raw foods, because the benefits to the human immune system are incredibly important.
Is healthcare a right?
I think that our ability to take care of ourselves and our own health is a God-given right. I don't think healthcare I don't think we're entitled to anything if we can't do it for ourselves.
Right. So in other words, nationalized healthcare would not be something you support.
Absolutely not. It's dangerous. It's dangerous to have something like that. I have friends on the left-hand side of the aisle that, are pro-socialized medicine, and they bring up, interesting points. It's just that I believe if you're in a free market system, as free as you can at least, and if you're giving people the ability to choose for themselves, how they care for themselves in the first place. And secondly, if you're allowing them to keep more of their own money and put that money into something like a health savings account, then those people can make choices for themselves about how they want to spend it, which for me sounds like a much more profitable, sustainable model versus having something like, completely socialized medicine.
Well, let's go to the Swami of Freedom, Michael. How was it done before HMOs and all these big insurance companies came to pass? I mean, insurance companies must have been around since the founding fathers, right?
God, I don't know that the insurance companies are that old, but You asked how we used to do it before. I have two younger brothers, and as we were growing up, 100% boy, we would be running around and, fall off the roof, tripping our bikes. And so we were, constantly getting scrapes and bruises and broken ankles and stuff. In fact, Dad would have to go to my grandmother's house to get the crutches, and my grandmother would be going, okay, all the time somebody on the sticks, meaning the crutches. But my dad would take us to the clinic and then pull money out of his wallet and pay for the service on the spot. And he was able to afford that. Now that we have insurance companies as a part of the problem, the insurance companies charge, just excessive. Well, the insurance companies make it possible for the doctors to charge excessive prices. My mother had a blood test, and she got a notice from the insurance company indicating that they had paid $650 for the blood test. Now, the good news is that Mom didn't have to pay it, but the bad news is the doctors were charging that much. And if they're charging that much for my mother, they're charging that much for anybody. And if the insurance companies are paying $650 per blood test, what do you think is going to happen to your insurance rates? You may not be paying for it directly the first time, but as your insurance premiums go up, you are definitely paying for it. And we all pay for it because, the system, the price of healthcare these days is almost unaffordable. LASIK surgery and cosmetic surgery is fairly cheap because it's elective surgery. Insurance companies won't pay for it, and so doctors have to compete. And I had LASIK surgery. It cost me 7 times what I could pay for it now. And if you have competition, the prices come down, the quality of the service and products go up, and insurance companies disturb that delicate balance.
Tisha, one last question before hour number 1 comes to a close, and that is free market. How do you prevent corruption in a free market without regulation?
I think there is a place for regulation. I think that it's not at the federal level, however. I think you need to have that at the state level. And so, at least at that point, it's more sustainable and it's closer to localities that can make these decisions for themselves. Whether that's something like with the U.S. Forest Service, that should be decentralized into these localities that are closer to home and closer to the people who are having to deal with the decisions. The same thing, I believe, could be said for the EPA. I believe that there is a place for regulations, but the federal government, with the office that I'm running for, does not have a place for those because the dictates from Washington, D.C. are completely out of touch with the realities that people in these local communities face. And these mandates coming from D.C. and the federal level are what are causing a lot of the pain and heartache for small business owners and even for small governments that are trying to do the right thing for their own free market economy with that regulation. But when it's coming from the federal level, it's dangerous. So, I believe that each community can decide for themselves the level of regulations that they want. But the federal government, that's where we really need to focus on eliminating a lot of the unnecessary regulations.
How about the TSA? Necessary or unnecessary?
Unnecessary.
Fantastic. And just think about this, folks. Think about this. 9/11 happened because of what? 9/11 happened because the current rules and regulations weren't being enforced. Was there a need to expand government 40%? To develop the department or become, this big conglomeration called the Department of Homeland Security and the establishment of TSA who go and now, and imagine this, folks, Nazi Germany, they wouldn't have thought to go and grope you or grab your wife's bosom or anything like that. They wouldn't have done that in Nazi Germany, and they're doing it here in the United States. Makes me sick. Tisha, give people your website, if you would, and how they can find out about your campaign and more about you.
The website is Casida2012.com, and that's C as in cat, A, S as in Sam, I, D as in dog, A, 2012.com. And a lot of information is there as far as things that I've written, and as well as our platform. And I encourage people to let me know their questions and their concerns. I'm a people's candidate, and I want to hear from everybody. It's very important for me to not only, to listen and learn from others about what they're experiencing.
That is fantastic. We're at the end of hour number 1. Hey, I also want to point out that Tisha's got a YouTube channel that she's bringing up to speed. It's Casida for Congress. And you can go to YouTube and subscribe today, as I'm sure it's going to have some fantastic information for you guys to see. So with that said, at the end of hour 1, number 2 is coming up. You are listening to Freedom Link Radio on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Popeye's on the way. Stay tuned.